Arsenal take on Liverpool in the Premier League in what is certainly the biggest game of the season so far. A must-win match in which, if they do lose, a 7-point gap will open up to the title leaders. If they win, though, the conversations change dramatically, and certainly the mood will discover a brand new height of euphoria. Let's jump into today's Arsenal preview show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal preview show, joining you every single match day eve, usually. We're doing a pre-record of this one. So this one's probably going to be going out the morning of Arsenal versus Liverpool. So do bear in mind when you're listening to this that you might think, hold on, we know the answer to this question already, but of course I don't. And my guest who joins us from the Discord server, Mike, doesn't know either. Mike, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm very well, thanks, Tom. Yes, all is good in Mike's world. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Of course, joining us all the way over in Australia, of which we were just talking off air about how things are about to become a little bit more uncomfortable for you because of how the clocks in the UK have gone back actually this morning, if this is going out on Sunday. So this show will be going out at 8 o'clock in the UK. But for anywhere and anyone who's not affected or has not had their clocks affected by the daylight savings in the UK, this will be going out at a different time to what you're usually used to, as will all the morning shows now going forwards. I've been doing this show for 1,000 times on 8 a.m. So we've been through this before, and I know that people still go, Tom, where's the show? Why have you not done it? Or why did it switch time? This is why, because we have daylight savings here in the UK. But yes, Mike, it's going to be worse for you guys over there.
It is. It's going to mean that Champions League's going to be. It's going to be a 4 a.m. kickoff, and the late game on a Saturday will be 1:30. So if we get a 5:30 kickoff, it's a bit unpleasant. The 3 o'clock isn't bad,
just
but
move back. just move back, mate. That's problem solved. Problem solved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, it's again, it highlights the commitment that people and fans, of course, not just in Australia or New Zealand, but around the world, in the States and other parts of North and South America as well, Asia too. You know, the lengths that fans will go to watch the games is totally and entirely commendable and respectable. And Arsenal are very appreciative as well. And we're very appreciative that those around the world listen to this show. But it is that we are here to talk about Liverpool and Arsenal against Liverpool. How are you ultimately feeling going into this one?
Probably more nervous than I was, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think obviously there's a number of factors kicking around at the moment, not least the fact that we're missing half of the team. And perhaps confidence has taken a little bit of a knock. And also, I've got to be honest, I'm a bit annoyed with myself. I got sucked into some of the stuff that was going on subsequent to the Bournemouth match, particularly, and after we won a Champions League game, surprisingly,
what did you get sucked into? What was it that was like?
Oh, look, it's I've got a little sort of policy that I try to be very, very picky about who I listen to and where I go subsequent to.
Why are you here?
So there's a couple of safe places, one of which is here, one of which is the Arsenal Vision guys are usually relatively sane, but the rest of the world went completely bonkers. So I got pulled into that a little bit too much. I think normally I'm fairly controlled with it all, but I let myself get.
Well, it's funny that, isn't it? It's when we lose that those people come more to the forefront of our minds, not when we're winning, which I think is probably a bit of an indicator of, of things more than anything else. But yeah, I worry about this game because, of course, if we had, Saka, Odegaard's certainly available. Of course, we're recording this before Mikel Arteta's press conference. There's been some little bits here and there that give us encouragement that Saka will be there. David Seaman actually did an interview where he was speaking about the fact that when he was at Arsenal, he saw Saka, with his footy boots on and doing some stuff, which I'm sure Arsenal were delighted that he revealed and leaked out. But of course, it's given us a bit of an insight into where we're at. It's also given Liverpool an insight into the expectation and to probably start preparing maybe for Saka's presence on Sunday. But I'm really worried, Mike, about the connotations of how Liverpool can be so dangerous, but also, of course, how we can and will be vulnerable without not only the likes of Odegaard, but William Saliba, who's also suspended.
Yes, that's a big one. Yeah, the whole that Saliba incident has really changed the way I feel about Sunday as well. I think we've managed without Saka before, we've managed without Odegaard before, and we've managed without Saliba rarely. But to not have potentially all three is pulling arguably our three best players out of the team. I mean, it's that. I'm not sure there's any other team in the Premier League that could cope with losing their top three players and not be impacted significantly by that. It doesn't matter who you look at. You look at maybe Haaland, Rodri, and De Bruyne all out together. That's never going to make Man City feel particularly comfortable. And of course, it matters all that much more when it's a big game, as it is now, and coming off the back of perhaps not the best week in the world, and obviously on top of that, the potential to be 7 points behind Liverpool, which is not an insignificant margin even at this stage. It's not a game finisher, but it's certainly potentially a game changer. And so I agree with what you said in the introduction, in that this is certainly it's a no-lose game. We must not lose it. And arguably it's almost become a must-win. And certainly as far as the fan base, it will be a must-win.
Indeed,
less said before, more in the way of meltdowns. But yeah, we've undoubtedly got an exceptionally good team, probably performing better than most people expected this season already.
Yeah.
On the other side, and it's going to be a big ask.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge ask. I look at obviously, and I know that they've got their own issues. You know, I haven't heard Arne Slot's press conference, but you know, Alisson is probably not going to be there. Diogo Jota is a question mark as well, which obviously are two massive players. Sorry, say again.
And Jota not being there is not a bad thing for us.
No, of course, and he has a great record against Arsenal. So it's if he isn't available, he wasn't in the team that played Leipzig. He wasn't even in the training session before that game, to my understanding. So yeah, unless we've missed something that Arne Slot has said, of course, which is possible with this being a pre-record. I find that if I say that at the start of shows, I jump into the chat box sometimes if I'm free to see what the chat box is doing. I still have people asking questions there, and I have people in the chat box going, "This was pre-recorded," and I feel sorry for them because, like, you know, of course they've missed the start of me saying that. So I'm saying this again for those that inevitably are asking questions. This is being pre-recorded, so I can't be there and we can't answer them. We're trying to preempt some of these questions. One of them, I think, may be the structure of the back four. Now, it's probably better if, and we don't usually jump to lineups this soon, but there is just so many questions about the lineup that it's probably better that we have them up on screen of where we're at. So you've gone with, and you put Calafiori in this, and that kind of tells you how little we knew when we were recording this show, because it came out after Mike sent me his team that Calafiori, according to Italian media, would indeed be missing for at least a few weeks, or at maximum, I think it was the quote in the Italian media, at least a few weeks with a knee injury. So he isn't there. But you did send in your backups in case, because there's so many that you had to put a backup for just in case they weren't there. So Kivior comes in for you, I guess, with Calafiori not fit.
Yeah, I think if we look at the alternative, Zinchenko hasn't played a minute for what seems like an eternity, and Zinchenko versus Salah isn't a match made in heaven as far as we're concerned. I think historically, not that Kivior had the best experience recently. Obviously, he popped on and then popped off again. but he's more comfortable at left back than centre back, and that's why I would leave him there and not put him in the middle. Obviously, the other big issue. I've no dramas with Ben White going centre half, but obviously the other big issue is right back, with Timber being one of those that's very much been hidden in terms of a lot of information. If Timber isn't available as well, this starts to cause a little bit of a big issue. I think maybe we see Thomas Partey back at right back.
Yeah,
I can't see Lewis Skelly being anywhere near that back four against Liverpool to start, at least.
Salah, sorry. Skelly versus Salah is a scary proposition. And that's not just down.
I think he's exceptional.
Talent. I just think that he's a great talent. And I saw that when he came off the bench, the other night. But also I saw when he was in the box defending, my heart was in my mouth a little bit at times, because there was moments where I thought he was going to give a penalty away and thankfully didn't. But against arguably the best right winger, not just in the league, but the world, I'm not sure I can throw an 18-year-old inexperienced kid into that role.
No. But I think, look, I mean, as you say, he's certainly done well when he has had minutes this year. So no drama has been on the bench as a backup for such, but to start him against Liverpool is a big ask for.
Big ask. Big
at this
ask.
Stage.
We'll probably flip.
So maybe Partey.
Yeah. Well, I've put Partey in mine. I think we'll flip between our two lineups throughout the show, because as we go through the 11, if Timber's fit for me, like I'd put him up against Salah. Yeah, I just think that Kivior. I have a staunch defense of Kivior. I rate the guy to an extent. I think he's decent, and I know I've raved about him starting at Man City, last season, but I just feel like his head is a bit not with the fairies, but it's been affected, I think, this season. I think there was something that happened in the summer. I think that he would have wanted to go, get more minutes. That, from what we heard from reports, was kind of blocked. And he's obviously on the outskirts of the team. And so that, from what we've seen in the small performance we've seen, there are moments where it has been affected. I mean, the Bolton game, of course, thinking about when Bolton countered and Kivior was really nowhere to be seen, at that point either. And the mistake against Bournemouth last weekend will ring true in not just our minds, but Arteta's as well. I'll be honest, something I do notice, and this might be unfair on Arteta, but I often, when Kivior comes on, Kivior, I remember against PSG, I remember it against, I think it might have been Bolton as well. And one of the other games he came off the bench in. Was it? There was another league game at home. It might have been Leicester or Southampton, one of the two, when Kivior came off the bench. When Kivior plays a pass, I look to Arteta sometimes, and he's like this. he's like, so often he's like this, and he's clearly nervous about Kivior's distribution. But that's an area of Kivior's game that I think that defensively, I think he does trust him. But I think it's his ability to play out that he is less assured by.
So no, I think that's fair. Additionally, when he pushes up to add a number to the midfield, so it doesn't invert well. I think as a defender is solid, but I do. In terms of his linking with other, or the relationships he has with other players, in terms of making the team or giving the team some synergy, I'm not sure he's there either. So I do share your concerns about Kivior, but it's a case of needs must almost. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, even if Timber's fit, to see what you've put up there with Partey at right back.
And Partey, I think, has been one of our better players in the last few weeks. I think that he is. I think he's been in a position where he's responded to some scrutiny at the beginning of the campaign, and some scrutiny around his future, because there's been so much question marks about whether he'll be leaving in the summer with the last year of his contract, with Marino coming in as well, who was injured, and he had to step into that role that I think maybe Arteta might have seen him moved out, and he's responded well. So he's in good form, which means it gives me confidence to play Partey in this unorthodox position as well. For me, I do feel there's an overreaction from fans when they see Partey at right back. It's every time I see, if I mention it, the chat box explodes with "No, we can't put Partey." And I think there is I get people's apprehension, but I think he's much better there than people actually give him credit for. And it's just take him out the midfield, Mike. I think that maybe riles people up a bit.
That I think is the issue. With Marino not yet finding his feet in terms of being an established part of the team yet. But I agree. I think Partey has been the surprise of the season so far in terms of what he's been able to give us.
Yeah.
Pre-season, even I was quite happy for him to hang around, give us half an hour here, maybe even an hour there. But he's not back, obviously, to his best, but he's not that far away. Is managing 90 minutes and not looking as though he's on his last legs at the end of the game. So I think Partey has been the pleasant surprise of the season so far in terms of performance. So I wouldn't have had him in a starting 11 at the start of the year, but no drama now in terms of him being there. He's there with some justification, even if everybody's fit almost.
We've both gone with Trossard as well as our attacking midfielder. Needs must, I think. I've put Winery in there the last few weeks because I want to see him play. And I think we've come up against sides like Southampton, like Bournemouth, like Shakhtar Donetsk, like Leicester to a degree as well. That I feel there were opportunities there that were missed to start him and give him some really good minutes in a period where we've needed to see more depth in that position and see what he can produce. But I can't start him against Liverpool, having not started any of the other games, is my reasoning for that. I know some people might be brave enough to do so, but me and you both aren't.
Yeah, I think that if he'd had some minutes, then and that had sort of borne some fruit that we all expect him to give us, then perhaps. But I think he'll come on. And to be honest, it was Trossard's there as needs must for me right now. I'm a bit dark on Trossard at the moment, I must admit. It's very difficult to not think that essentially he's potentially cost us 3 points at City, he's potentially cost us Saliba for this game in terms. And I must admit, I wasn't very happy about. I think if Odegaard had been on the pitch on Sunday, I don't think he'd have been taking that penalty. And Arteta's press conference afterwards, but that just added to an already I'm annoyed with you, Trossard sort of vibe that I was feeling anyway. But look, the relationship he has with Havertz is undoubtedly a good one. And so, but he needs to step up.
Yeah, he does. Absolutely. I think you're right. I think he does need to step up. And I think he needs to deliver. And we have seen him deliver in big games. He scored in this exact fixture last season, scored the winning goal, really massive goal, and not necessarily even a Trossard-like goal, sprinting down the left-hand side, cutting in, great finish. You don't tend to see those types of finishes from him where he's taken the ball such a long way, at speed, and it was a very welcome one as well. So hopefully we see a repeat of that from, a more central role. Into the forward line, Saka. Obviously, we are yet to hear from Arteta at the time of recording, but there's obviously a lot of signs and symbols that we've already hinted to that Saka might indeed be there. Both myself and you have gone with the same front three for this game. Saka returning. And also Martinelli's, I think probably, of all the players that we've seen struggling, Martinelli is one whose form has taken a lift a good time. So that is definitely a benefit.
Very much so. I thought he was certainly the star man, if not that it was against much competition in the game at the weekend. But yeah, game by game, you can see that confidence just flowing back through his veins, and we're starting to see what we would expect from Martinelli, to be honest. And it's great to see. It's great to see. In terms of Saka's an interesting one. I mean, obviously the reports of the injury subsequent to him being sent home from England weren't that it was anything major. And maybe Arteta's just decided to rest him, because that's what we've all been screaming out for the last 3 years. So I suspect Saka's probably in a reasonably good place, not only from the point of view of him being great anyway, but also just give him a chance to recover, as he should be able to from a knock. So I must admit, I'm looking forward to having that creative spark that we seem to have lost a little bit over the last couple of games, with Saka back in the starting 11.
Indeed, no, 100%. I agree with you. I think it's a huge opportunity to see him respond, and to see them both back. And for Martinelli again, who's got a decent record against Liverpool in terms of his scoring, so hopefully that can be revived. But the team, it is dependent very much on fitness. It's dependent very much on who is going to be available, and you have to let us know in the comment section, the chat box, what your team would be based upon the information that you will have, perhaps more privy to than we are right now, recording this on Thursday. But yeah, I think that there's a lot that can happen in the next 2 days, Friday and Saturday, before then the game on Sunday, that will give Arteta plenty to think about going into the fixture, which is as of this being live, this afternoon against Liverpool. How do you feel about Arne Slot and his job at the moment? Just quickly before we move to the predictions, then, because obviously Liverpool are top. They are at the moment been the best side in the league, but the only real challenges they've faced in terms of the fixtures have thrown up Man United, who were horrendous when they played them, and they were rightfully beaten. And then Chelsea, who gave them a decent game, but Liverpool still came through. And I think maybe Liverpool were a bit lucky because Sancho, I think, was probably worthy of a penalty that wasn't given in that game as well. And Palmer wasn't really on it either in that game. But I thought Chelsea overall looked okay. But they haven't really faced too many challenges yet.
They haven't on paper, but you've got to beat the team in front of you, whichever way you slice it. They had a blip, obviously, after the last international break with a loss at home against Forest. But apart from that, the way they've been, it's not just that they've won, but the way that they've been playing seems to be becoming better and better over the course of the weeks. So they'll take a lot of confidence from that result against Chelsea, because it has, with justification, dampened down, although you've not played anybody yet, so a narrative that was kicking around. So obviously Slot's come into an exceptional team already, but today there's very little to criticise from what I've seen, certainly of some of the Liverpool games, in terms of how good they are, and underestimate them at your peril, I think. So they're there. They're in the title race at this stage.
Yeah,
and I don't see that changing. Don't see that changing for the foreseeable future.
No, I don't see it changing at the moment. It's very difficult to see it changing whatsoever. And Arsenal are going to be the team tasked with trying to do that, of course. So we'll see how it goes on. Speaking of which, predictions, scoreline and scorers, please.
2-1 Arsenal. Havertz and Martinelli with 2 assists from Saka. Nice. To celebrate him back in the 11. So, but it's going to be, I suspect it's going to be a nervy one, whichever way you slice it, if we are to win. So it's going to be another one where I'm going to be spending most of it like this, I think.
Yeah, me both, mate. It's I'm looking forward to being there. It was an amazing game last year. Of course, that Trossard goal, just the atmosphere. That's the one thing that's been lacking recently in the Emirates is an atmosphere. And I really hope that this game sees a return to the frenetic noise that we know this stadium can produce in big games like this.
Sure.
There's no question marks about what the motivation is for this one. So let's hope they can bring
Absolutely.
it. I'm going to go with a 1-0, a really nervy 1-0. Kai Havertz with the goal, of course. And it'd be nice to see Trossard maybe get an assist as well from that attacking midfield position. So yeah, let's see if that turns out to be the case. I mean, it'd be a horrible experience as well with a 1-0. But
yes.
I tell you what, I'd take it in like the 95th minute. That'd be great.
Yep.
That would be, even though it'd be awful in a way, but like just there's few fan bases that rile me as the way Liverpool sometimes do. So So yeah, a late win would be absolutely glorious.
It would.
Let's wait and see. Thank you, Mike, for your time. Always appreciate it. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Tell people where they can find you.
You'll find me in the Discord channel when I'm not too nervous to type. Just pop in there, guys. If you're not part of that, be part of that. It's a good place to be.
Indeed. Thank you once again. And to our listeners, of course, apologies this wasn't a official live show, and apologies if you've been gazumped by the change of time. That this is, of course, going out on the interwaves. I'm hoping it's actually released at the right time because I'll be scheduling it for a certain time, hoping that YouTube recognizes daylight savings as well. So maybe it's gone out at a completely different time. We'll have to wait and see. I'll be up early to check, that's for sure. But thank you to all the listeners. Please do make sure you drop a like on the video before you go and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.